Alright, so now that we are done with the first section, which is this particular one, we are moving on to the second section, which is this particular section. So let's jump into the CSS. This section is supposed to be quite easier. I'll call that section, let me see, I'm going to name it items, so list items, right? So let's create a div with our class list, sorry, list items. Then inside there we are going to have a title, right? So the title is going to be this particular one. Great. So let's jump into the code. Let's have title of that. We'll define the CSS for this particular title, but then I'm going to also define a class called break, right? And that is just going to take a padding of 40. So let's jump inside. Let's define that. So I'm going to call this break and set the padding to 40, 40 pixels, right? And what I also want to do is I also want to set CSS for the font. I do not always want to type the font name. So let's say font Gotham will take font family of that. And then the font Helvetica will also take a font family of that. I want to speed up what we are doing, so that is why I'm doing all this. That's why I'm defining so many CSS classes. So down here, I'm also going to define another break. Now let's define some CSS background colors too. So let's say let's call this deep white, or let's say off white background, for instance. And this is going to take background color of, let's say, RGB 225 225 225. And let's do same thing for white. So white BG, that is going to take, let's say, RGB background color of RGB 255 255 255, like that. Good. Two 55, no, exactly. So if I save this, let me see, if I save and refresh, we are having this not looking good. Anyways, let me define the title class. So let's call this title, give it font size of, let's say, 3.5, and then the fonts family, I won't assign the font family like I said. So over here I'll give it font, and let's define a class for center to center test. So say center test should go to test align center. So if I refresh, there you go. There you go. Let's add this off-white background to this. If I refresh, I think it's a little bit too dark. Oh no, it's too dark. So let me change the off-white to let's say 240 or 235. 235. Let's make it 235. 235. Let's refresh. How about 245? Okay, it's much better. So off-white background. So now we are going to have our div of row. We are going to have our items, right? So we are going to have O dash let's say 3, and let's define a class for padding. I don't know whether I already did. Okay, I've already done that. So let's give it a padding of 10. And inside this, we are going to define you know what, yeah, we'll give this a class of list item, no items, item for singular. And inside this, we are going to put in the image. Let's give it a class of list image. Then we are going to put in the text. So for first and foremost, let's put in the image and see what happens. The first one is going to be, let's say, bike, and the text is also going to be bike. And I'll give it class of font that. So if I refresh, here's what we have. But it's looking pretty big. And I also want to center things, so I'm going to put this entire div, which is the row, inside a different div. I'll give this width of, let's say, 80, or I'll give it a width of 90, and I'll assign a margin of auto to it. So margin auto. And I'll push this inside. Let's expand. Okay, it's looking good. So now this comes here. Great. So the list item, I also define the CSS for that. So list item goes to, it's going to have a top padding. So padding top of, let's say, 20 pixels, and then padding bottom of 20 pixels, right? Then the image dot list image would also have max width of, let's say, 150 pixels, and then the height as, let's say, 90 pixels, right? let's save this and then go back and refresh. And there you go, we have this. It's looking much better, but it's not same as this, so we have to put a background color of white on this one. So white background. I will center this text. So sorry, center text. Refresh. All right. The image, let's give it a margin bottom of, let's say, 10 pixels. And let's transform this div into a flex. So flex colon justify content center align items center. And if you refresh, there you go. So this looks good. Now still on the list item, let's give it border radius of, let's say, 5 pixels to smooth the edges a bit. Great.